ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹੈ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਮਨਜੀਤ ਕੌਰ ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੀ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਹੋਮੋਸੈਕਸ਼ੁਅਲਿਟੀ, ਬਾਈਸੈਕਸ਼ੁਅਲਿਟੀ, ਟਰਾਂਸਜੈਂਡਰਡ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਮਨਜੀਤ।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
ਹੋਮੋਸੈਕਸ਼ੁਅਲਿਟੀ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆਦਮੀ ਆਦਮੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਪਿਆਰ ਤੇ ਲੜਕੀ ਲੜਕੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਪਿਆਰ। ਬਾਈਸੈਕਸ਼ੁਅਲਿਟੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਆਦਮੀ ਜੋ ਲੜਕੀ ਅਤੇ ਆਦਮੀ ਨੂੰ ਦੋਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲਾਈਕ ਕਰਦਾ ਨੇ, ਜਾਂ ਲੜਕੀ ਜੋ ਆਦਮੀ ਤੇ ਲੜਕੇ ਨੂੰ ਲਾਈਕ ਕਰਦੇ, ਦੋਨੋਂ ਨੂੰ ਲਾਈਕ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਤੇ ਟਰਾਂਸਜੈਂਡਰ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਲਿੰਗ ਨੂੰ ਬਦਲਣਾ। ਤੇ ਹੈਟਰੋਸੈਕਸ਼ੁਅਲਿਟੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਜੋ ਆਦਮੀ ਲੜਕੀ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਂ ਲੜਕੀ ਆਦਮੀ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਪੁੱਛਣਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਕੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਨੇ, ਇਹ ਆਪਾਂ ਪਤਾ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ। ਤੇ ਇਹ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਾਹਤੋਂ ਆ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਥੋੜਾ
ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗ ਰਿਹਾ ਮਨਜਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ। ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਕੀਤਾ, ਮਾਈਂਡ ਕਨਸੈਪਟ ਅਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਟੂਟੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਲਾਈਆਂ, ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਨਾ ਵੀ ਹੈਵ ਟਰਾਈ ਟੂ ਚੈੱਕ ਦ ਬ੍ਰੇਨ ਪੈਟਰਨ ਸਿਗਨਲਸ, ਕਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਅਫੈਕਟ ਕਰਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਈਵਨ ਪੁਟਿੰਗ ਪੀਪਲ ਥਰੂ ਸਲੀਪ ਪੈਟਰਨ ਮੋਡ that we've put in electrical parameters and impulses to see the brain wave pattern and pattern of thoughts. It's a mystery, such a mystery that we cannot unravel why homosexuality ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਗੇ ਜਾਂ ਲੈਸਬੀਅਨ ਬਿਹੇਵੀਅਰ।
ਸਾਇੰਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ, ਜੈਸੇ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗ ਰਿਹਾ,
ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗ ਰਿਹਾ। ਪਰ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਖੁਦ ਬੱਚੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਜਾਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਕਲੀਨਿਕ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬਚਪਨ ਤੋਂ ਫੀਲਿੰਗ ਹੋਈ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀਗੀ। I never felt that ਮੈਂ ਸਕੂਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂ ਕਾਲਜ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾਲ ਬੰਦਾ ਦੇਖਦਾ ਜਾਂ ਮਸਤੀ ਕਰਦਾ ਜਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਪਿਆਰ ਦੀ ਨਿਗਾਹ ਨਾਲ ਦੇਖਦਾ, ਜਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਕ ਅੱਖ ਮਟਕਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ, ਬੰਦਾ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਇਜ਼ ਗੋਟ ਫੀਲਿੰਗ। ਦੇ ਸੇ ਵੀ ਨੈਵਰ ਹੈਡ ਦੈਟ ਫੀਲਿੰਗ। ਬੋਥ ਸੈਕਸਿਸ ਫੀਲਿੰਗ ਆਫ ਲਵ ਔਰ ਪੈਸ਼ਨ
ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ
ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ, ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਗੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਉਹ ਸਿਰਫ ਆਦਮੀ ਨਾਲ, ਉਹ ਜਨਾਨੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਮਿਊਨੀਕੇਟ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ। ਕਾਰਨ ਉਹਦੇ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੱਸਾਂਗੇ, ਵੀ ਡੋਨਟ ਨੋ, ਬਟ ਉਹ ਖੁਦ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਣ ਕੇ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬਚਪਨ ਤੋਂ ਹੀ ਫੀਲਿੰਗ ਸੀ,
ਬਚਪਨ ਤੋਂ ਹੀ ਇਹ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਨੇ। ਤੇ ਇਹ ਨਵੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਇਹ ਸਦੀਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ?
ਸਦੀਆਂ ਤੋਂ। ਜਾਂ ਸਾਇੰਸ ਕੈਨੋਟ ਫਾਈਂਡ ਆਊਟ ਵਾਈ। Is this a physiological development? Is this a mental issue? Is this a psychological issue that develops through time? It is such an open platform. It's the biggest mystery.
So ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਾਂ-ਬਾਪ ਜਾਂ ਲੋਕੀ ਬਾਹਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪ ਇਹ ਚੁਣਿਆ ਆ, ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਚੁਣਿਆ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਲੜਕਾ ਲੜਕੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰੀਏ, ਇਹ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੀ ਖਿਆਲ ਨੇ?
ਟਾਈਮ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਫੈਕਟਰਸ ਇੰਨੇ ਬਦਲ ਗਏ ਨੇ। ਇਟ ਹੈਜ਼ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ ਇਨ ਇੰਗਲੈਂਡ ਬਿਕਮ ਐਕਸੈਪਟਡ। ਮੈਰਿਜ ਬਿਟਵੀਨ ਅ ਗੇ ਐਂਡ ਗੇ ਹੈਜ਼ ਬੀਨ ਐਕਸੈਪਟਡ socially. Not in every country. In USA, in Los Angeles ਵਗੈਰਾ, San Francisco is the biggest gay society and that's been accepted, or marriage between gay people.
ਤੇ ਸਦੀਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਨੇ। ਤੇ ਪਤਾ ਕਿੰਦਾ ਲੱਗ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਾਂ-ਬਾਪ ਹੈਗੇ ਘਰੇ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਬੱਚਾ ਇੰਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ, ਜਾਂ ਜੋ ਬਾਹਰ ਹੈਗੇ ਲੋਕੀ, ਪਤਾ ਕਿੰਦਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਬੱਚਾ ਗੇ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ, ਉਹਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਆਦਮੀ ਮੁੰਡਾ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਹੋਰ ਮੁੰਡੇ ਨੂੰ ਪਸੰਦ ਕਰਦਾ ਆ, ਜਾਂ ਕੁੜੀ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਹੋਰ ਕੁੜੀ ਨੂੰ ਪਸੰਦ ਕਰਦੀ ਨੇ? ਇਹ ਕਿਸ ਕਿੰਦਾ ਪਤਾ ਹੋ?
ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਨਾਰਮਲ ਫਾਰਮਸ ਆਫ ਹਿਊਮਨ ਬੌਂਡਿੰਗ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ। ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੌਂਡ ਹੈਗਾ ਨਾ, ਯੂ ਕੈਨ ਨਾਟ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਇਟ। ਪਿਆਰ ਇੱਕ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਆ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਅੰਧਾ, ਇਟਸ ਅ ਬਲਾਈਂਡ kind of love, and ਜਿੰਨਾ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਤੋੜੋਗੇ ਸੋਸਾਇਟੀ ਤੋਂ, ਜਾਂ ਕਹੋਗੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਰਦਾਰ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਾਫੀ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਨੇ ਫੋਰਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹ ਬੱਚੇ ਵਿਆਹੇ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਥਰੂ ਦੇ ਅਦਰ ਲਾਈਕ ਪਾਰਟਨਰਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਸੰਦ ਕਰਦੇ। ਦੋਜ਼ ਮੈਰਿਜਸ ਹੈਵ ਨਾਟ ਬੀਨ ਸਕਸੈਸਫੁਲ ਬਿਕੋਜ਼ ਫਿਜ਼ੀਕਲੀ ਉਹ ਅਰਾਊਜ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੇ। ਫਿਜ਼ੀਕਲੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਜਿਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਨਾਲ ਸੌਂਦੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਫੀਲਿੰਗ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦੀ। ਕਾਫੀ ਮੈਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਲੜਕੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਫਿਰ ਕਾਉਂਸਲਿੰਗ ਲਈ ਆਉਂਦੀਆਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸ਼ਾਦੀ ਟੁੱਟ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਬਿਕੋਜ਼ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਨੇ ਫੋਰਸਫੁਲੀ ਕਹਿਤਾ। ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਵਿਆਹ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਬਦਲ ਜਾਏਗਾ ਲੜਕਾ, ਮੇ ਵੀ ਪਸੰਦ ਕਰੇਗਾ ਲੜਕੀ ਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਬਦਲ ਜਾਏਗਾ,
ਬੱਚਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਏਗਾ, ਪਿਆਰ ਵੱਧ ਜਾਏਗਾ,
ਪਿਆਰ ਵਧੇਗਾ, ਔਰ ਲੜਕੀ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਕ ਔਰਤ ਨਾਲ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰ ਸਕੇਗਾ। ਇਟ ਹੈਜ਼ਨਟ ਚੇਂਜਡ। ਐਂਡ ਦੈਨ ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਕਾਉਂਸਲਿੰਗ ਕਰਦੀ, ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਉਹ ਲੜਕੀਆਂ ਵਾਪਸ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਮੁੜ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਵਿਚਾਰੀਆਂ, ਹਾਰਟ ਬ੍ਰੋਕਨ, ਬਿਕੋਜ਼ ਬੜੀਆਂ ਸੀਕ੍ਰੇਟਿਵ ਟਾਕਸ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਫੋਰਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਵਿਆਹ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ। ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਬੱਚੇ ਖੁਦ ਆਪਣੀ ਫੀਲਿੰਗ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਮਾਂ ਨਾ ਟੋਲੋ ਬਿਕੋਜ਼ ਆਈ ਹੈਵ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ ਗੋਟ ਅ ਮੇਲ ਪਾਰਟਨਰ, ਜਾਂ ਲੜਕੀ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ। ਆਈ ਹੈਵ ਮੈਨੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਕੁੜੀਆਂ who are lesbians.
ਮੈਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਤੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਚੁੱਪ ਚਾਪ ਕਰਕੇ ਵਿਆਹ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ। ਤੇ ਕਈ ਵੈਬਸਾਈਟਸ ਵੀ ਸੀਗੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗੇ ਆਦਮੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਲੈਸਬੀਅਨ ਲੜਕੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ਾਦੀ ਕਰਦੇ, ਕਿ ਮਾਂ-ਬਾਪ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਨਾ ਲੱਗੇ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਦਾ ਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਤੇ ਉਹ ਉਹਦਾ ਦਿਖਾਵੇ ਲਈ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਪਰ ਸਾਈਡ ਪਰ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਆਪ ਦੇ
ਗੱਲਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਡਰਨ ਲਈ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ। ਸੋ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਲੱਗ ਸਕਦਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਡਾ ਬੱਚਾ ਗੇ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ?
ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਿਰਫ ਗੇ ਵੱਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਏ ਦੈਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਤੋਰ ਔਰ ਬੋਲਣ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਰਕ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਨਾ ਬੱਚੇ ਬੜੇ ਹੁਸ਼ਿਆਰ ਹੈ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਅੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਪਹਿਚਾਣ ਤੋਂ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦਾ, ਜਾਂ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਬੋਲੇਗੇ ਹਾਈ ਹਾਊ ਆਰ ਯੂ ਟੁਡੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਥੋੜੇ ਲੜਕੀ ਵਾਲੇ ਬਿਹੇਵੀਅਰ ਹੈਬਿਟਸ ਹੋਏਗੇ, ਸੋ ਝੱਟ ਬੰਦੇ ਕਹਿ ਦਿੰਦੇ, ਜਾਂ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਤੋਰ ਹੋਏਗੀ। ਇੱਕ ਟਾਈਮ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਆਦਮੀ ਜੇ ਚਿੱਟੇ ਸੌਕਸ ਪਾਉਣ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਸਿਗਨਲ ਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਗੇ ਆ। ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਆਮ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਸੌਕਸ ਪਾਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਆਦਮੀ, ਪਰ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਇਹ ਸਮਾਂ ਚੇਂਜ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਨੇ। ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਸੌਕਸ ਚਿੱਟੇ ਹੋਣੇ ਜਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀ ਦੈਟ ਵਾਸ ਅ ਸਾਈਨ ਆਫ ਅ ਗੇ ਮੈਨ,
ਪਰ ਇਹ ਜੋ ਸਟੇਰੀਓਟਾਈਪਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ, ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਕਾਫੀ ਪੋਸਟ ਉੱਤੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਜਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਬੜਾ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਿਲ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਪਤਾ ਕਰਨਾ ਕਿ ਕੋਈ ਗੇ ਹੈਗਾ ਜਾਂ ਲੈਸਬੀਅਨ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਰਕੇ। ਲੜਕੀਆਂ ਜੈਸੇ ਲੈਸਬੀਅਨਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੈਚੋ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਵੀ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਹੁਣ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਸਟਾਰ ਵੀ ਨਿਕਲੀ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇਗੇ।
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ, ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ
ਦੇਖਣ ਨੂੰ ਕਦੀ ਦੇਖਣ ਨੂੰ, ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਹ ਸਟੇਰੀਓਟਾਈਪਸ ਟੀਵੀ ਦੇ ਦਿਖਾਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਇੰਦਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਇੰਦਾ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਨੇ, ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਹਾਲ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗ ਸਕਦਾ। ਤੇ ਆਖਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਪੁੱਛਣੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਨੈਟਵਰਕਸ। ਹੁਣ ਜੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਈ ਹੈਗਾ ਗੇ ਜਾਂ ਲੈਸਬੀਅਨ ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਮਦਦ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੁਣਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ, ਕਰਕੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਡਿਪਰੈਸ਼ਨ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ, ਸੁਸਾਈਡ ਥੋਟਸ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ,
ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਅਪਹੀਵਲ ਬੜਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ।
ਸੋ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ?
ਅਗੇਨ ਦੇ ਆਰ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਸੈਂਟਰਸ, ਦੇ ਆਰ ਗੇ ਕਲੱਬਸ, ਦੇ ਆਰ ਲੈਸਬੀਅਨ ਕਲੱਬਸ ਖੁੱਲੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ। ਆਈ ਡੋਂਟ ਨੋ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਦੀ ਸੋਚ ਬਦਲ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਦੇ ਆਰ ਮੈਨੀ ਪਲੇਸਿਸ ਓਪਨਡ। ਅਗੇਨ ਦੇ ਆਰ ਸੀਕ੍ਰੇਟ 0800 ਨੰਬਰਸ, www. ਕਰੋ ਵੈਬਸਾਈਟ ਤੇ। ਇਫ ਯੂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸਪੀਕਿੰਗ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ, then go and speak to these people to assist you, maybe even get them to come and talk to your parents of how you feel, and see if you can see light at the end of the tunnel. It is a social factor ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਾਂ-ਬਾਪ ਇੱਕਦਮ ਡੁੱਬ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ, they feel ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਤੇ ਧਰਤੀ ਖੁੱਲ ਗਈ ਆ ਜੇ ਉਹ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੜੀ ਆਸ ਰੱਖੀ ਸੀ, ਸਾਡੇ ਘਰ ਨੋ ਆਏਗੀ, ਅਸੀਂ ਪਾਣੀ ਵਾਰਾਂਗੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਬੱਚਾ ਹੋਏਗਾ। ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਨਰਸਰੀ ਸਕੂਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਟੀਚਰਸ ਬੁੱਕਾਂ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ, I have 2 dads and I have 2 moms, as a nursery book to make it socially acceptable that this child will not feel dejected, because ਬੱਚੇ playground ਕਹਿ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ you have 2 dads, you don't have a mommy. ਉਹ ਬੱਚਾ ਕਹੇਗਾ my god ਇਹਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗ ਗਿਆ my father is gay and I have another father। ਜਦੋਂ ਦੋ ਪਾਪਾ ਦੋਨੇ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਇੱਕੋ ਹੀ ਸੈਕਸ ਦੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਨੂੰ ਚੱਕਣ, ਬੱਚੇ ਛੇੜਦੇ ਨੇ। And in America, these books were being read in school. Here, we are 10 years behind. We have started to accept this socially. And what is the cause is still a mystery. मैं लगता है अगले जन्म में भी ਅਸੀਂ ਲਵਾਂਗੇ ਤੇ maybe ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗੇਗਾ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਰੀਜ਼ਨ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਈਕੋਲੋਜੀਕਲੀ, ਮੈਂਟਲੀ, ਫਿਜ਼ੀਕਲੀ, ਫਿਜ਼ੀਓਲੋਜੀਕਲੀ ਉਹ ਬੰਦਾ, ਉਹਦੀ ਫੀਲਿੰਗ ਉਸ ਆਪੋਜ਼ਿਟ ਸੈਕਸ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ। ਇਹ ਬੜੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਮਿਸਟਰੀ ਰਹੇਗੀ ਸਮੇਂ ਲਈ। ਪਰ ਉਹ ਪੇਸ਼ੈਂਟ ਵੀ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਖੁਦ ਡਰੇਨਡ ਹੋਏਗਾ, ਡਰੇਗਾ ਮਦਰ ਤੋਂ, ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਤੋਂ, ਔਰ ਜ਼ਬਰਦਸਤੀ ਰਿਸ਼ਤੇ ਕਰਨੇ ਔਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਔਰ ਲੜਕੀ ਔਰ ਲੜਕੇ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਬਰਬਾਦ ਕਰਨੀ ਇੱਕੋ ਵੀ ਪਾਪ ਹੈਗਾ। ਲਿਸਨ ਟੂ ਯੋਰ ਚਿਲਡਰਨ, ਪਿਆਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਫਰੈਂਡਸ਼ਿਪ ਔਰ ਦੋਸਤੀ ਰੱਖੋ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਬੱਚਾ ਓਪਨਲੀ ਆਪਣਾ ਵੀਕ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਜਾਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੀਕ੍ਰੇਟ ਦੱਸ ਸਕਦਾ, ਪਰ ਡਰਾਓ ਨਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਨੂੰ। ਲਿਸਨ ਟੂ ਯੋਰ ਚਿਲਡਰਨ ਐਂਡ ਲਿਸਨ ਟੂ ਯੋਰ ਲਵਡ ਵਨਸ। ਲਾਈਫ ਬੜੀ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ਼ੀਅਸ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। Today we're joined with a special guest who's come to talk about their story, about their homosexuality story. Hi and welcome to the Sikh Channel.
Vaiguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaiguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you for having me here.
How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
So today's program is about homosexuality, bisexuality and transgender. So we wanted to ask questions about your life and your story and what you've been through and how it's been for you, yeah? So firstly, I wanted to ask you, when did you know that you were gay?
A lot of people say that you know from really, really young. You kind of know your whole life, but I think the time that I knew the most was when I was about 14 years old.
What happened? How did you find out?
It was just the fact that all my friends used to be girls. I never had any guy mates in terms of friends in general, so it wasn't a case of me going to go and play football. I would always be inside. I wouldn't do the typical boy thing to do. And it was when I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and she introduced me to her boyfriend, and I started talking to her boyfriend outside of school, and I told him first, and then she came up to me and asked me, and I said to her that, yeah, I was gay.
So in your opinion, how do you know if someone's gay or not? For the viewers at home, for the parents who are concerned about their child, or the child themselves, what is your opinion on that?
There isn't any science for it. They say that you have your typical stereotypes, but when you look into it, a lot of people, especially being from an Asian background, they hide it a lot more. So it's, in terms of that, it's harder to tell if somebody is because of the fact they try to hide it so much.
Because you've talked about how you had no guy friends and you had girlfriends and the sort of things you liked. Is that general for all gay people? Is that how you find out if someone's gay or not?
If people are looking towards stereotypes, then yes, that is a way to tell. But again, a lot of people try to hide it. So they'll play sports, they'll do stuff that is considered more masculine compared to being more feminine. So it's more of a case of, I know that a lot of parents and friends probably wouldn't ask in case it's a bit embarrassing, but it's probably better to ask than not to, because if you don't, then you will never know.
Okay, so you can't necessarily tell by looking at someone or the way they behave or what they do that they're gay or not.
No,
There's
never.
different types of gay people. You get gay football players, you get gay rugby style, you get very macho gays, very feminine gays, and lesbians and things like that. Okay, so how did you feel when you discovered that you had feelings towards other men? How did that make you feel?
I didn't really feel any different. Growing up, I wasn't around a lot of Asian kids anyway, because when I grew up, I was in more white-dominated schools. So in that sense, it was more accepted there, so not many people tend to care that much when it came to it. So when I came to I'm not even going to say the idea, but when I knew that I was, it didn't feel like it was something that was really necessarily bad, because we had people at my school who already came out as well. And for them, everybody just accepted it straight away.
What about those people at home who think being gay is a choice and people decide to be gay and it's a modern, fashionable thing to do?
It's not a modern, fashionable thing to do. I don't agree when people say that. I think they're just saying it to find an excuse for why somebody is. Because for somebody to come out and say that they are gay, or when they know that they are, it's not a choice, it's who they are. It's something that they have to come to terms with. It's not a case of, oh, everybody's doing it, I'll do it as well.
So did you choose to be gay?
No.
Is being gay a harder thing for you?
It is, especially when being Sikh as well, it is a lot harder because society takes it as it handles it a lot worse than what it should be. Like, it's not necessarily a bad thing, so I don't really see why.
So you found out you were attracted to men at the age of 14, yeah? Did you experience any bodily sensations or feelings? How did that go? Can you explain that in a bit more detail?
It was more of a case of sometimes I'd be around, like, in a class, and there would be a case of everybody started talking about this one girl and how good looking she is and how amazing she is. But I never had that same feelings that they had. But when it came to talking about guys and stuff like that, I would have a lot more opinions on it.
Okay.
And especially, again, being around a lot of girls during then, it was just natural just to start talking about guys.
And who were the people you first told? You said it was your friend's boyfriend.
Yeah.
And then after that, who were the people you told, like friends and family?
It was mostly my friends that I told to start with.
At school?
At school, yeah.
Your age?
Yeah. Me and my brother went to the same school as well, so I told him as well before. Actually, no, I told him before I told all my friends.
And this was at the age of 14?
Yeah.
Okay, so very young age.
At the age of 16.
16?
Yeah, 14 I knew, 16 I told everybody. So I told him first, and then started to tell all my friends, was a lot more open about it. And then I think it was a couple months before my 17th birthday that I told my mum and my sister as well.
How did you go about telling them?
I told them by email, Again, because it is to Sikhs and Indians, it's a taboo subject. So me telling them face to face, and you hear loads of stories as well. You read all the stuff about people getting kicked out, disowned. So instantly you have that idea that it's going to go really, really bad. So
Did you feel like you were going to be disowned?
Those thoughts came into my head.
Okay.
Because you always think of the worst case scenario before you think of the good. So while I was typing up my email to send, in my head I was just waiting for replies like, get out, we don't want to talk to you again. So it was a lot harder then.
And how did they react? Firstly, your friends and your brother, and then your sister and your mother?
My friends were fine with it because I'm not exactly what you call the most masculine of people. It was, everybody kind of knew in that sense. My brother, he was fine with it. My sister told me that she'd known for a while and was waiting for me to say. And my mum, she said that she'd talk about it when she got home, and she never did. She kind of just went straight up into her room, and till this day we still haven't spoken about it, but the fact that she still knows in the back of her head.
Does she speak English?
Yeah.
So it makes it easier for you to express yourself?
Yeah.
Because you speak Punjabi, but would you be able to express it in Punjabi if you had to?
I think it's a lot harder to, because there isn't a way of saying it.
So those children whose parents speak only Punjabi, what advice can you give to them?
The advice I'd give to them is they have to explain it in the way that they would if they were describing, say, if they were gay, how they would describe a girl. And if you were lesbian, talking about how you would talk about a guy, you have to make it sound like it isn't so much of a bad thing, but you do have these feelings that won't change.
Okay. And so what has your mum said ever since then?
She hasn't really spoken about it. Sometimes when there's programs on TV and people just generally talking about colleagues at work or something that might act a bit gay, she goes a bit on edge. You can tell that she is a bit nervous in case somebody does ask her. But she hasn't changed, as in she still cares about me.
So you told her at the age of
16.
16, and now you're 22.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been 6 years
Yeah.
now. And do you have a father? Does he know?
I do. He doesn't know. I think when you're a guy telling your dad, I think it's better to be in a relationship or be a lot more grounded in terms of it's not something you can say and then the next day say, oh, no, I'm not. It's a case of you have to really be prepared for what's going to happen. So for me, it's the case of I'd rather be with someone so they know that I'm not doing it as a phase.
Or a choice.
Or a choice, yeah.
Or a fashion.
Yeah. That is me and that's who I am.
And you need another person to be able to do that?
To me, I think I do. To a lot of people who I've spoken to, they have done it without being with somebody. But I think for them to understand more, being with somebody would help them see it.
Okay. Have you experienced any negative thoughts or abuse from other people, verbal or physical, regarding your sexuality?
I used to get that a lot,
Yeah.
especially while being at school. But I got it both from my sexuality side and also racial as well, because the schools I went to were more white-dominated compared to being Asian-dominated. So it was kind of being bullied about two things. And when I got older, it was more towards the way I acted and the fact that I didn't play sports or I didn't enjoy what everybody else did. I hated PE.
And your brother went to the same school, so did he have to deal with stuff as well? And how did he cope or manage or help you with that?
My brother's been there from day one. I can't fault him in any way. Like, even now, he's the one who's there. Like, if I say that I'm going out, he would be the one to say he'll come pick me up, regardless of the time. If we're walking around in shopping centres and stuff, he'll always look at what other people are doing or what they're saying. So he would be the one to back me up.
So he protects you?
Yeah.
So can you tell me about how you went about accepting yourself? So you said at 14 you found out that you were gay, and at 16 was when you told people. But so you had 2 years of knowledge.
Yeah.
And what did you go through mentally? For those who may be going through it at home, how did you get out of it? How did you accept that this is who I am? It's not a choice. It's not a fashion.
Yeah.
It's the way you are. So how did that go?
During the 2 years that, from when I knew to when I told everybody, I did try to deny it. I didn't think it was. I tried to hide it as much as I could.
How did you do that?
I'm gonna say I tried to get a girlfriend, but again, because of the way I acted and the fact that I was a lot more feminine than other guys, it didn't work out. And I think that, in a way, was kind of okay. If I can't hide it, then I shouldn't have to hide it. I'm not saying that people should hide it, but you literally have to just wake up one day and it's like, okay, no point of trying to be something I'm not, because it's not going to work.
So you talked before about other people who've come out that
Yeah.
you know of who were not in a relationship, and then you've talked about how you tried to get a girlfriend, but because you felt like people could tell that you were gay, that wasn't possible,
Yeah.
and you didn't want to hide it. I've been doing a lot of research for every documentary, and I've come across a lot of guys who you couldn't tell that they were gay, and therefore they could have girlfriends, or therefore they could even get married to women or
Yeah.
men, depending on lesbian or gay, in order to fulfill their parents' wishes. Now, what have you come across any of these individuals? Do you have anything to say about this?
I've come across quite a few individuals who are married. Some of them even have kids,
Yeah.
but a lot of them kind of do it behind closed doors. Like, they're very secretive about their sexuality.
Yes.
For me, personally, people like that, they're destroying two lives. They're destroying themselves by pretending to be something that they're not. And they're also destroying the person's life who they're with as well, because a lot of them kind of just dive straight into it in a case of strong denial. Or it could even be that they have told their parents, which I have spoken to one guy about, who has been telling his parents from day one, really, but they just won't accept it. So they got him, forced him to be married.
Forced marriage.
Forced marriage.
To a girl.
To a girl.
From India or here?
From India.
And what's the story now with them?
He's still married to her, but they don't talk, because he's actually come out to her as well. And he's got 2 kids, but he hasn't told them. So it's a
But
case...
they still live together?
Yeah, it's a case of them playing happy families.
So how prevalent is this in our society, in the Sikh community, in the Asian community? How in your mind, how many people are like this? Because we had statistics from Stonewall earlier, and they've put a figure at 5%, but...
5% is nothing. 5% is literally of the cases that they know about.
Yeah.
There is a lot more cases where that's how secretive they are. They literally will do everything that they can to remain private.
So where do you meet these people? I did some research, and in Birmingham alone, there's 2 Indian gay nights, 2 Asian gay nights and lesbian nights, which happen at least once a month, or sometimes twice a month. We've got Sati and Urban Desi. We've got these different types of clubs, and in London there's a lot too, and in every city actually in the UK. And I've lived in India too, and I've researched in India. There's lots of gay and lesbian, bisexual, transgendered clubs. And these clubs are full of people. I've heard, and I've been told, and I've seen the pictures and stuff. So from that, I can tell that the percentage is much higher. And a lot of them are in your, I don't know, what would you feel about that? A lot of them don't tell their parents. I've joined lots of Facebook groups, and I've tried to talk to people. And there's been things about marriage of convenience, where a gay man will marry a lesbian woman in order to pretend to the parents that they're in a relationship. But where do you meet these people? Are there any other sort of avenues of There's online dating as well, isn't there? Can you...
There's quite a lot of online dating that goes on. Again, with a lot of them, it tends to be, the profiles that they have will be non-pictured.
No pictures on the profile.
And it would be more of a case of them approaching you instead of you approaching them, because you don't know who they are.
And what are they looking for primarily?
a lot of them are literally just looking for, I'm going to say, a de-stressor. They're just looking for a good time, really. And it's
They're
not
looking for sex,
yeah,
basically.
exactly. And
Are they married or are they single or?
some people are single. Some people come from India because they want a job or a different life. And because they're that far away, they can kind of be a lot more open with themselves. There's a lot of married people on there. Or there's a lot of people who are in relationships. But they're just doing it just to please everybody else.
And I also researched there's places where they meet up for sex, such as saunas and clubs and hookup cruising places,
Yeah.
where a lot of married men do go to. I was recently I've interviewed a lot of people, but they didn't want to come on to camera.
Yeah.
I interviewed one gentleman, and he was very disillusioned about the whole gay life, and he didn't want to tell his parents. He was about 25, 26. He had a boyfriend who ended up getting married to a woman, and they carried on their relationship whilst he was still married, and he's almost given up.
Yeah.
And he meets up people, from the internet and has sex with them or whatever. But in the end, he looks very depressed and sad because the parents don't know.
Yeah.
And another guy I met, he says he's bisexual and his parents married him off. And he's always on these sites as well, and he's always looking. And, it doesn't seem to be fair for these women who, they get married to and they don't know that their husbands are having affairs outside with other men. So do you know of any other sort of instances? Can you give some more insight into that world?
I have actually spoken to one gentleman while I was at university who was in a 4-year relationship and they were thinking of getting married, and he still preferred being with guys, and he was doing it more because his family were really strict on their views on marriage. Like, it had to be between a guy and a girl. So for him, he basically wanted a relationship with a guy, similar to the story that you said, but he wanted to carry on that relationship while still being married as well. So it literally was, everything was secretive. It was more of a case of to everybody else says you'd be their best friend, but behind closed doors you'd be their lover as well.
So it's almost like living double, triple,
Yeah.
quadruple lives, right?
Exactly.
So these men and women end up getting used to lying, leading different lives. What sort of psychological, mental, physical, emotional effects do you think that has?
I think for the person who is either involved in some way, as in they're the boyfriend of the husband or they're the wife of the husband, psychologically it does a lot to you, because if you're the guy who's basically the one who's having the affair, to them it's nothing, because they can be who they want to be for a couple hours and then come back and they're a husband with 2 kids and a wife who love them very much. But for the wife, if it did come out in public that the person was gay or they've seen them with a guy, it would literally destroy them. Like, I've had an incident of one guy who actually did tell his wife, and the first thing his wife did was just run away. She couldn't handle it. She just packed her bags overnight while he was out, wherever he was out, came back and his wife had gone. Or she just couldn't take it. She didn't answer any of his calls. They had 2 kids together. The kids stayed there with him, but she just went, because it literally, that's what it does. It's, like I said before, it's destroying 2 lives.
So why is it seen as such a big issue in our communities? Why do our parents or gurdwaras or societies not discuss these matters openly and accept that they exist in such an amount they do exist? From my research, from these online dating apps you can go to on your phone, you can see who's close by, who's not. There's so many of them. Like, just spending an hour on this phone, you get so many messages and people, asking this and asking that. So why are our parents' generation unaware or oblivious or don't want to know about this?
I think it's more society than anything else. Society has made it so it is a taboo subject. So it's a case of they don't want to speak about it. But it's one of those things where they're that much in denial that it's like the elephant in the room, but no one notices it. So they won't talk about it. And they shy away from it as well. I think because as soon as you start talking about it, people instantly start to question, is that person gay himself we're talking about it? Or why are they suddenly wanting to talk about it?
What about, we've talked about men who have sex with men or have relationships with men. What about women who have relationships with women? Do you know any lesbians? Do you know of any Indian, Asian?
I do. I know two or three women who came out to their parents, and luckily, their parents are perfectly fine with it.
Yeah.
They've had girlfriends. They've introduced their girlfriends.
Are they Sikhs?
Yeah, two Sikh girls. And they've introduced to their parents. Parents are perfectly fine with it, really accepting. I think a lot, it depends on, again, it's how they grow up as well. Because for their parents, they came here from India when they were quite young. So they were instantly hit with the fact that there were people who did like guys and girls who did like girls as well. So for them, when it came to my friends having to say, it was a lot more accepting for them to understand it because they got to see it a lot more and they got to talk to people as well.
So do women who have relationships with women, do they experience the same sort of issues and problems that gay men do?
I think they do. It literally is split down the middle for them because of the fact for a woman, it's the case of when you're older, you have to get married, you have to settle down.
Give children.
Give children, yeah, exactly. You have to kind of carry on your husband's name. So they're instantly brought up with that notion of if they don't do this, then it's really, really bad and it's disrespectful.
Yeah.
So again, with a lot of them, it's the whole idea of a double life. So they will have a relationship, but then come home and they would have a husband, or they would say to their parents that they're in a relationship with a guy just for the sake of pleasing them.
Can you tell me, because you wear a turban, can you tell me about your view what Sikhi has on homosexuality?
Well, Sikhi always explains that you should treat people as equal. So in terms of being gay, it shouldn't make a difference. Because if you practice what you're preaching, then you should treat everybody as one person. It's not a case of this person's gay, this person's lesbian, this person's transgender. It is literally, we're all one person. So we should be treated as one person.
Well, what do you think about gay marriage? No, we've had the Equality Bill introduced in the UK, and there's gurdwaras who are kind of reluctant or against it. And what are your thoughts on that?
I don't think they should be, because marriage is the love between two people, regardless of their sexuality, regardless of their gender as well. If two people love each other that much and they want God to see that they love each other that much, they shouldn't be stopped for it.
So do you think they should be allowed to get married in the Gurdwara?
I think they should, because it's when you grow up, you have that notion of you want God to see that you're happy. You want God to see that you're getting married, you're living. So people want to get married in the Gurdwara. Everyone has that idea that that's the way they want their wedding to be. So I think a lot of Gurdwaras out there should start to consider having same-sex marriages, because it would be more accepting, and that's what Sikhi is accepting people.
Do you think that's what's stopping the acceptance, in a sense, of the community accepting gay people?
I think, yeah, because it's a lot more to do with society than it is religion.
The Akal Takht, the Rehat Maryada from that talks about how marriage is between a man and a woman.
Yeah.
Now, that's philosophical men who have made analysis of the Guru Granth Sahib in a given social conventional structure. What do you have to do? You have anything to say about that?
With that, it's an interpretation of it. It's how it's interpreted. The actual Guru Granth Sahib doesn't mention a marriage being between a man or a woman.
Why do you think that is?
Because I think the reason they did it is because they themselves saw it. They must have seen it.
So you're thinking during the time of the gurus there were gay people?
Yeah, I think there's been gay people since the dawn of time, really. So they must have seen it in some way.
Because in the Guru Granth Sahib itself, there's no mention of homosexuality, bisexuality or transgender.
Yeah,
They talk about equality of human beings
Yeah.
and the spirit.
that in itself is kind of indirectly saying that there are people out there who might not fall into what people call the norm, but that doesn't mean that they should be treated any differently.
So why do you think the gurus were silent on this matter?
I think, again, it was society, because it's only recently been accepted that a man and a man and a woman and a woman should get married, or they can be more open about it. So I think at the time then, just as it was like 100 years ago, it was seen as being really taboo, and it was a topic that nobody discussed whatsoever.
Okay. For parents at home whose child may be gay or lesbian or bisexual or transgendered, what advice do you have to offer for the parents?
To listen.
Okay.
That's the main thing. A lot of parents, as soon as they hear, or even if, say, they're watching this, they will think instantly it's a load of rubbish. They shouldn't watch it. It's bad. It's not sicky, and they'll change the channel. But they need to listen, because it's not something that goes away overnight.
Should they automatically assume that their child is straight?
No, because as soon as you start to assume, you start to try and change it as much as you can. So there are some parents who do know that their kids are gay or lesbian, but because they have in their head that every child is straight, they try and force as much as they can of that straight way of thinking, I'm going to call it. So they try and move them away from stuff that maybe if they are a bit masculine or they're doing something a bit feminine, they should be brought back to do something more masculine, vice versa as well. So if a woman is doing something more masculine, they'll instantly, parents-wise, will force them to do something more
The
feminine.
gender norms are so rigid
Exactly.
in our society. It's so heteronormative. So should parents ask their children straight away, or should they listen to their child and wait for the child to come and tell them if they're gay or lesbian?
I think it works both ways. I think parents shouldn't exactly ask, but they shouldn't assume that they are as well.
They should be open to it.
They should be very open to it. They should literally wait for their child to feel that they are comfortable to talk about it. When being Asian, when you're growing up, stuff like this, again, because it's such a taboo subject, isn't spoken about.
But it's widespread, like you say.
Exactly. So it's a case of it's there, but no one wants to say it's there. So for parents, it's more of a case they need to start accepting that this is what society is, regardless of where you go. I mean, you've got India's just started to accept it properly. Like, they've got Desi Pride. That is the biggest thing that's happened for them. So it's a case of you can't hide from what is there.
In India, it's interesting, the penal code for homosexuality was introduced by the British.
Yeah.
When they arrived, there was no anti-homosexuality laws prior to that. And in 1991, the High Court appealed it. So we talked about how homosexuality was around the world. In a lot of the world, there were no laws against it. And in the Middle East, it was prevalent between men and boys and all sorts.
Yeah.
But it was when the religions came, Islamic religion or the Christian religion with the Crusaders, that they started to impose these things. Actually, even with the Islamic religion, it was prevalent, but it was with the Crusaders and the Christians. And the Britishers and the colonizers who kind of implemented all this. And now it's funny that in these countries that colonize, like Britain, now they have all these laws that are so open. And these other countries like India are catching up, like you may say. Okay, and what about individuals and children like yourself who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender? What advice could you give to them to live an open, true life, authentic life to themselves, honest life?
I think it's a case of as soon as you start to accept yourself, other people will start to accept you as well. When it's a case of you're hiding it so much, when it does come out in the open, it is a lot harder for people to accept it. But as soon as you start to accept it yourself, and you start to live that life where you can tell people, you're not ashamed to hide anything, it shows a lot more. People start to realize it a lot more. It's a lot more acceptable then for other people to
Is
accept.
it easy to accept yourself when you're living in such a community?
It isn't to begin with because you're hit with so much negativity. But I think it's more of a case you have to see the positive side of everything. Okay, a lot of people might disagree with it, but that doesn't mean you should have to not necessarily hate yourself for it, but it's a case of it's there, it's not going to go away, so you might as well stop trying to fight it. You literally need to accept it, exactly.
Oh, okay. So you would, the advice you would give was to accept it. What kind of support networks are there out there? Did you have any support networks, any social community sort of avenues for these children at home, these individuals, these adults who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered? What sort of...
There is actually quite a lot of different support groups out there that I think they're just trying to get people to accept themselves. There, where I live, there is actually one organisation, I think it's still open. It was the Black Ethnic Asian Minority Group. And it was an LGBT group who specialised just in people who were black and ethnic minorities as well. So I did actually attend a couple of those meetings, and there was actually quite a few Indian guys who were there because they themselves were coming to terms with it, and they wanted to know that there is other people out there. I think that's another point as well. A lot of people think that they're just alone.
They're alone.
Yeah.
They're the only one.
Exactly, when it's not. There is actually quite a few who are out there as well. So there's places like that. There's websites as well that help a lot. There's actually a website for Sikh gay men and women.
Is that sarbat.net?
Yes.
That's an organisation.
Yeah.
However, they are quite small, I think.
Yeah, they're very small. I think, again, they're trying to get people to join and to help out as much as they can in terms of getting the word out there, but because a lot of people shy away from it and think that that's not them, it can't be them.
Even they shy away from it. I've tried to get them to come on this show, and they never seem to have the time or... Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just a case of they need to kind of not wake up in a way, but I think once everybody starts to accept it, they will be a lot more open about it.
So summing up, do you have any other things that you want to discuss? Any other factors, any sort of important information that you want to give out?
For parents out there, just because your child is either gay or lesbian doesn't mean they won't be successful. A lot of parents, a lot of people that I've spoken to, the first thing that they think is that their parents think they're just going to be nothing when they're older.
They're no less a human being than any other.
Exactly. They still can achieve great deals. Like myself, I actually have my own business that I started
we haven't
recently.
discussed about yourself.
Yeah.
What is...
So I have my own business and I work as well. So I have 2 jobs which are going quite well. So just because of my sexuality, it doesn't change what I can do in life. It doesn't change the fact that I can be, not exactly what my parents are, but it doesn't mean that I can't achieve what I want in life.
And indeed, a lot of successful people are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered.
Yeah, like you've got, like you said, about footballers and rugby players. You've got lawyers as well, doctors. It is
across the board, whether they're out and open.
Exactly.
In the sport and the music industry, not so much, but in the other industries, you have got open. I mean, indeed, a lot of gay people are highly successful.
Yeah.
Sometimes that comes out of overcompensation and trying to feel more valid to the parents. So you have to be careful with that too. And what about your thoughts on the future? Now, you've talked about your business and stuff. Are you hopeful about the future? What are your plans for the future?
My future plans is to carry on where I am in my business, see where that takes me, if it does take me anywhere else. And it's also to essentially find somebody, to actually find a guy to get married. It's not a case of me having to hide it because I have nothing to hide.
So you want to find true love
Yeah.
and also to carry on with your success with
Yeah.
your businesses.
I want to have that happily ever after, that parents feed their kids
Okay.
when it comes to marriage.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the
Thank
show
you for having
today.
me.
It's been very insightful and it's very beneficial for the viewers at home who shy away from these things, live in parda,
Yeah.
and don't talk about these important issues that are prevalent in our society, in every family, in every household. We need to openly discuss these issues and realize they're not issues, they're just part of life. Thank you very much. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. This is Manjinder Singh. Today we're here at Stonewall with James Lawrence to find more out about homosexuality, bisexuality and transgender. So let's take it from there. Hi James, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you very much. So today we've come to talk about the documentary, right? And can you explain to us more about Stonewall, the organisation itself?
Sure. Stonewall is a campaigning charity and it campaigns for legal and social equality for lesbian, gay and bisexual people.
Okay.
It was set up back in 1989 and it was set up in response to a piece of legislation called Section 28. And that piece of legislation effectively made it illegal for people to promote homosexuality through local authority funded bodies, which was basically schools. And the issue with that at the time was it was very restrictive. It sent out very negative messages about gay people. It was also at the height of when HIV/AIDS was coming to the fore. So there were lots of instances of HIV/AIDS, and it meant that sex education for young people wasn't going to be covering an area that was going to really affect young men in particular. And they weren't going to get the level of information that they needed. So the legislation effectively spurred a small group of people on to create Stonewall. And initially the remit was to see Section 28 repealed so that young people in school could get the support that they needed. And since then the remit has expanded to look at legal and social equality for gay people generally across Britain. And since 1989 we've had a number of great successes. So Section 28 was repealed, that was a great one. We equalised the age of consent. There were legal protections put in to protect gay, lesbian and bisexual people at work, and that protected them from harassment and also discrimination. And that applies when that's when you're applying for a job, but also when you're working and then when you leave. And one that people are probably most familiar with, which would be the protection of goods and services. So if you're a gay couple and you want to rent out a room in a hotel, it's now illegal for you to be turned away on the grounds that you're gay.
I would like for you to explain specifically what does the term LGBT, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, what does it actually mean?
Okay, so LGBT, L is for lesbian, that's women who are attracted and they have sexual and emotional relationships with other women. G is for gay. Gay is usually gay men, but some women who are lesbians prefer to be called gay women, so the G can cover them too. B is for bisexual. Now that's people who are emotionally and sexually attracted to both men and women.
Okay.
And that is a separate sexual orientation in its own right. Some people will use throwaway comments saying, oh, it's just someone who isn't fully comfortable with saying that they're gay. But no, bisexuality is a separate sexual orientation in its own right. And with some people, they may end up long-term with a same-sex partner or long-term with an opposite-sex one, but bisexuality is separate to being lesbian or gay. The final one, T, is transgender, and that is separate to lesbian, gay and bisexual in that it's around gender identity and not around sexual orientation.
Okay.
And people who are transgender will usually have felt that they were born in the wrong body, and it's a gender identity issue that they need to work through, whereas with lesbian, gay and bisexual, it's sexual orientation.
So is transgendered like they have female body parts, male body parts, or inside they feel that they are actually different to what gender they were born?
In most instances, they will feel that they were born in the wrong body, and
Okay.
they may well go on to have gender reassignment surgery, so that they can feel more comfortable with the body that they're in.
Okay. So going further from this, many people think that being lesbian, gay, or bisexual, or transgendered is a choice. Now, what do you have to say about that? What does Stonewall have to say about that?
Sexual orientation isn't a choice. you are attracted to who you are attracted to, and that's pretty much the end of the discussion. We all make choices in our lives, but your sexual orientation isn't one of them. And what's important is when someone is lesbian, gay or bisexual, that you appreciate them for who they are rather than trying to force them into a role that they're actually not.
What kind of research is there available to explain why people are gay or lesbian for our parents at home watching? If their son or daughter is lesbian or gay, what kind of research is there to explain why it happens? What is the reason?
There's a lot of research out there, and a lot of it is contradictory. Some people will say, oh, it's purely biological factors. Some people argue that it's to do with environmental factors and it's how someone was brought up. There is no conclusive proof one way or the other. But sexual orientation is not a choice. You can choose with who you ultimately have a relationship with, but it won't change who you're attracted to. So sexual orientation is what it is, and you have to move forward being practical and live the life that you want to live.
Okay, so what advice would you give to parents whose child is LGBT? What kind of how can they support themselves? What should they do? And how should they behave?
If you think that your child might be gay, then contact Stonewall or visit our website, because we've got a publication called So You Think Your Child Might Be Gay, and that will give you very simple advice and information on what you can do next. Okay. And it's really simple. If you think that your child might be gay, make certain that they know that you love them.
Okay.
Talk to them openly. Don't ask them if they tell you that they're gay, are you sure? Because if they've plucked up the courage to tell you that they think that they're lesbian, gay or bisexual, then they are pretty much decided that they...
That's what they are.
Absolutely. And so at that stage, they've done a lot of the thinking through for themselves.
Okay.
It's most healthy for young people to be able to have a full and open dialogue with their parents about their sexual orientation. So offer as much love and support as you can. Let them know that you don't think any less or love them any less than before when they told you. And read the booklet for information and advice. And there's also support groups for the friends and families of people who are lesbian, gay and bisexual as well.
Some of our viewers don't speak or understand English.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of support networks are available for them?
Again, there are family support networks that people
Yeah.
can tap into. If you visit our website, you can get a list of them from there.
So there's different organisations for them to get help. Now, what if one of our viewers is gay or lesbian or bisexual? How would they go about telling their parents? What would your advice be when they should do it, how they should do it, and what kind of support is there available for them?
There's no hard and fast rule about coming out. The only real advice you can give is that you should do it when you feel ready to and when you feel that you're supported. It's best to do it when you're calm and rational rather than in the middle of an argument.
Okay.
It's a good idea to source as much supporting information as you can.
Mm-hmm.
So either publications or reference materials from Stonewall or any of the other organisations that offer support. If you've got a gay relative, it might be worth speaking to them and asking them for advice, or asking them to be present in the house when you're telling people, so that you've got some support to offer you backup.
Okay. Do you have any sort of case studies from the Asian community, from the Indian community, any sort of good or bad stories that, so viewers out there can understand that how prevalent it is, or how many gay people are in our communities? Because a lot of people in the Asian community don't think this being gay exists in our community.
Sure.
So what kind of...
If you head over to our website, there's a publication called Role Models.
What's your website, sorry?
Our website's www.stonewall.org.uk.
Okay, thank you.
And there's a publication that you can find on the publications page, or if you just go to stonewall.org.uk/role models, there's a publication called Role Models, which profiles a number of very influential and very successful business people who are lesbian, gay or bisexual. And there's a number of people who are black or Asian, from different faiths, talking about how they came out, the challenges that they've faced, and also how they've proceeded and progressed through life. So that may well be a good first port of call for information.
So do you have any percentage, statistics, figures on how many people are gay or lesbian, bisexual, transgender?
It's estimated that around between 5 and 7% of the UK's population is either lesbian, gay or bisexual. And so that in essence means it's around 3.7 million people in Britain. How that breaks down by faith, it's utterly unclear. It's presumably exactly the same percentage.
How is this percentage worked out? Is it for people who have actually openly declared their sexuality?
No, it's an estimate based on it was an estimate worked up by government actuaries when civil partnerships were being debated, and they were looking at what the financial implications of that would be.
So any idea of how they work that out? No. Okay. All right. So what is society's perception of being gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual? You know, I guess because it's such a small percentage, what you've just said, are these people marginalized? Are they treated unfairly? What are the negative effects from society that these people might?
I think over the past 25 years since Stonewall came into existence, the landscape has changed completely, and 20 years ago there were far higher levels of violence against gay people. Gay people would be scared to be openly gay at work because they could easily be sacked for it. You could easily be turned away from businesses because of your sexual orientation. It's a totally different situation now. And there's particularly given things like the Rainbow Laces campaign that ran last week, people are seeing A, that you can stand up to homophobia, and B, that there's support not just from other gay people but actually from the friends and family of gay people in terms of standing up, tackling homophobia, saying yes, it's okay if you're gay, we will support you, we'll care for you, we will carry you along with us.
So going back to Section 28,
Sure.
What is the situation in schools currently for gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender individuals, for instance?
Really simply, Section 28 was repealed. It is now no longer illegal for schools to talk about lesbian, gay and bisexual issues. Obviously, no one sexual orientation should be promoted over another, but teachers are free to talk about them openly, provide support where it's necessary, and give the right levels of information for young people.
And how have schools reacted to that? Do you have programs where you go into schools? What sort of information is given out, and how is this taught in day-to-day life?
We do a lot of work with schools. We've got 2 programs that run. We've got the School Champions program and the Education Champions program. School Champions works with individual schools and helps them tailor the work that they're doing so that they can better support young lesbian, gay and bisexual people. Education Champions works with local authorities strategically, so that looks at how you integrate gay issues across the teaching that you're carrying out. So those 2 programs complement each other. In addition to that, we also run a role models program, and that's for members of the Education Champions program and also School Champions, and that's where lesbian, gay and bisexual role models go into schools and talk about their experiences about when they were at school, how they coped with growing up as being gay or lesbian or bisexual, and also what young people can do to support other young people who are gay, lesbian or bisexual. So there's a number of different things that we're doing to support young people.
What kind of support do these young people need? What kind of things are they at risk at?
Probably the greatest issue that young people who are lesbian, gay or bisexual face in school at the moment is homophobic bullying. The levels of that is still incredibly high, and we know from the research that we've carried out that homophobic bullying has a really dramatic negative effect on young people. Not necessarily immediately when they're at school, but it can have a great impact in later life as well. So you're looking at things like increased levels of self-harm, increased levels of drinking, smoking, possibly drug use. And this is all preventable if homophobic bullying is tackled.
What kind of bullying is homophobic bullying?
Okay, homophobic bullying, that can range from anti-gay insults being used in school. Sometimes it's used openly in classes in front of a teacher. Sometimes it's used in the schoolyard. Sometimes it's used outside the school gates. So, and we know that the verbal abuse can be as vicious and have as bad an effect as physical bullying, which is obviously someone being punched or slapped around. We know that both go on in schools. We know that the physical levels of abuse have gone down by about 10 percentage points. So I think now it's around 56% of young lesbian, gay and bisexual people are physically bullied at school. But in terms of language, that's still incredibly high, and almost all young lesbian, gay and bisexual people hear anti-gay abuse in schools.
So what can viewers who are lesbian, gay or bisexual, who are experiencing bullying in schools, what can they do? Where can they go to?
The first port of call is always to talk to the school. Find out what their anti-bullying policy says, report the bullying, ask for support around it, and escalate the complaint if it's not being addressed with. But the first thing you should always do is report it, because a lot of the times bullies are quite clever and they won't do it in front of people who they know will try and stop it. It's only by informing your teachers, your head teachers, and then at a higher level the local authority that you can actually start addressing the causes of bullying.
Why does the bullying happen in the first place? What are the causes for it?
There can be a number of different causes. It can be that someone has been out on the street and seen that kind of language and behaviour being exhibited and they're just copying it. It might be that and particularly when that's the case, if they're copying the behaviour and they didn't see someone addressing that behaviour at the time, they think it's okay. Now, most people will know it's not okay, but children aren't most people. They tend to accumulate information like a sponge. And if you don't see someone saying, actually, no, that language isn't okay, or it's not okay to attack people for that reason, then they think it's okay. And until someone does actually step in and say, that's not appropriate behaviour, that's anti-gay bullying and you can't do it, then they'll just continue doing it.
What about viewers who are unaware of what language they're using? What do you have to say to them if they're using homophobic language in schools, in around the playground? What advice can you give to them?
Well, there's plenty of alternatives to saying that something is broken or doesn't work other than it's so gay. Use language like it's broken, it doesn't work. And that's a really simple, straightforward piece of phraseology.
Because that language term, that's so gay, that's a very common term used by a lot of young people these days in schools. Even people of my age, I've heard it quite often. So you're saying to replace that with other appropriate language?
Just find other appropriate language to use. It's not difficult, it's not hard. The issue with the it's so gay is that if you are actually gay, it's a little bit disconcerting, and then you start believing that actually if something is gay, there is something wrong with it, and you take that message on board and carry it with you. And that's very harmful for someone's mental health, when actually a simple change in the language people are using makes things a lot easier.
Do you have any specific examples of cases that have happened in schools where bullying has maybe escalated very viciously, or instances where there's been serious harm caused to the person?
I think you could look at any one of a number of schools to see where homophobic bullying spirals out of control because it goes unchecked. And the danger with not tackling homophobic bullying is that the bullies think that it's okay, and it quickly progresses from the occasional piece of homophobic language to a constant barrage of insults against someone, and then it can become more dangerous when physical violence comes in. And again, if it isn't tackled and nipped in the bud, people think that it's okay, and they just keep doing it until either someone is pushed into a corner where they fight back quite severely, or they take a route like self-harm, or the young person feels they've got no option but to leave their school. And obviously that's not a good outcome for anyone if you've got friends there and you're not feeling supported.
Okay, so we've delved a lot into this right now, but individuals who are not out, for instance, what effects does that have on their mental state, and what do they not bring to the table then? So can you tell us about the mental problems that someone can get if they...
It's more of an issue to do with what you're not saying. You'll spend a lot of energy skirting around or not declaring what you did at the weekend, or finding reasons not to attend functions with a partner because you don't feel that they're going to be welcome, or in some instances just inventing relationships so that you don't have to disclose to your colleagues that you've got a same-sex partner. It's also awkward for people who are bisexual if people have known them for a while to be in an opposite-sex relationship and that ends. It's difficult to then say, oh, and now my partner is of the same sex if you then start going out with someone of the same sex. So it gets quite, the amount of energy that you spend in not being yourself is quite debilitating in terms of what you then don't have to devote to the job that you're doing. And it's difficult for people who have had long careers, who are established in those careers, because up until 10 years ago you could be sacked for being gay, and that was perfectly legal.
And so what is the situation right now?
10 years ago the laws changed. It's now completely illegal to discriminate against someone in the workplace because of their sexual orientation. So that means you can't refuse to employ someone because they're gay, you can't sack somebody because they're gay, you can't discipline someone for talking about gay issues appropriately in the workplace.
Going further into the mental health aspect, for viewers out there whose parents, who are parents whose children are lesbian or gay or bisexual, what kind of mental issues can their child be facing that they need to be aware of?
Is this a child that hasn't come out or one that has?
You can give an example of both, please. Yeah.
For a young person that hasn't come out, they will be very concerned that they don't have their parents' support and love. They'll be very concerned that they will lose all of the kind of family support and connections that they currently rely on. And even throwaway comments, which you might think at the time were not homophobic, somebody who is a young person who's lesbian, gay or bisexual will pick up on that and they will store it. And they'll think, I can't talk to you about this because this is what you actually think of me. For people who are older, and this is particularly the case of people who are sort of in their 50s or so now, in the workplace, when they started their career, it was legal for them to be sacked for being lesbian, gay or bisexual. So many people have developed their career by either not being openly gay or inventing kind of like a double life to manage to exclude themselves from ever being put in a situation where they have to talk about it. What effect
does that have?
It's very it's exhausting after a while, because you are constantly checking yourself and wondering whether or not people have picked up on it. Now, obviously, legally you're in a situation where you can be openly gay at work, and that's fantastic. But if your entire career is based on you covering that up, and you have seen people in the past being sacked for being gay, it's quite difficult to change the mindset and say, well, actually, I'm going to come out at work.
So what kind of mental problems can arise from that? For both the child who's not come out or the adult? It
can lead to a range of different things. Some people are able to cope with it, but for a lot of people it can lead to stress, it might lead to depression, it could...
Alcohol, drug abuse?
It could well
self-harming?
Because it is a level of stress. It isn't true for everyone, different people will experience it differently. But the most extreme end of the spectrum, then absolutely those things.
And what about someone who has come out? What kind of difficulties could they face mentally, and what kind of support is there available for them?
If they've recently come out, they will be looking for constant reassurance that their family is still with them, and also that their friends are still with them. They've got that care and support. They will be looking for opportunities to talk about their lives. They may well say things like, "Oh, I was thinking about going. I've seen this thing about gay pride. Would it be okay if I went along and watched the march?" And that's a fairly standard kind of young person's request. And if you're comfortable with that, then by all means let them go. But saying, no, you can't go, I don't ever want you going to something like that, that kind of response is going to close down people from talking to you in the future. So whatever concerns you've got, you need to talk about them through with the young person and negotiate a way that their lives and yours can work alongside each other.
Should parents be asking all their children whether they are lesbian or gay?
I would suggest that it's something for the young person to bring to you. Although if you've got significant questions or you think it's going to be a helpful question to ask, then do. But do it in a non-threatening, confrontational way. For some young people, just having a discussion around gay issues will prompt a deeper discussion. So just talking about something you've seen on television might
So
be a
parents
useful
should be
conversation.
quite open-minded when they're discussing things with their children and not assume that their child is straight automatically.
I think it's most helpful to not make assumptions about anything to do with young people, but not to shy away from having conversations around lesbian, gay, bisexual issues. In some cases, young people will happily pipe up and contribute to it. They might close the conversation down or not particularly be interested. But it's best not to ask direct questions if you've got concerns about it. You could have publications from Stonewall just lying around the house that young people could pick up. That might be another way of addressing it.
Okay. You talked about living double lives. Now there's instances, especially in the Asian community, where people are having marriage of convenience, which means where a gay man or a lesbian woman will marry someone of the opposite sex, whether they're gay or straight, in order to have a double life and to show to the parents that they're having a heterosexual relationship. Do you know anything about that, and what are your thoughts about that?
I don't think there's been any substantial research into that particular situation. The danger, or the risk rather, of arranged marriages is that there's a high likelihood that it could be a deeply unhappy marriage for both partners.
Okay.
It would be unhappy for someone who knew that they were gay, being married to someone of the opposite sex, because ultimately that's not where they want to be. But for the opposite sex partner who's heterosexual, again, you want to be in a relationship with someone who wants to love you back, and is and reciprocates your love in exactly the same ways. So for some people that arrangement might work, but there's emotionally a risk on both sides.
Can you tell me a little bit about how someone accepts that they're gay or lesbian or bisexual? What's the process?
It varies from individual to individual, but there's been many theories that the first thing you do is come out to yourself, because you identify that there's something that is different about you to everyone else, and that's based on the fact that everybody around you will assume that you are not gay, that you're straight.
How do you know that you are gay or lesbian?
It varies from person to person. For some people, they think that they're attracted to girls, then boys, then girls again, and they may end up as a bisexual. For other people, it's just the intensity of growing up. It's a different process, person by person, so you can't say it's an 18-month process. For some people, it takes less time. For some people,
what
it takes
age does
more.
it happen at?
Again, it varies because it depends on the stage that people are going through puberty.
And how does it happen, and the process? So they start going through puberty, and is it different to how straight people find out about their sexuality? It's a tricky one because it varies from person to person. But the first thing is that you identify that there is something that's different about you. Okay.
Then you start realising that you're attracted beyond being friends with individuals of the same sex. Then once you've come out to yourself that actually you're attracted to the same sex, you may well start talking to some of your closest friends and sounding them out to see what their thoughts and feelings about lesbian, gay and bisexual issues are. And then for some people it's small baby steps over the course of several years. For some people it will be a matter of weeks. Talking and letting people know more broadly that you have these feelings and that you're becoming more confident in your own identity.
Okay. I was going to ask you about legislation and marriage. Now we have the Equality Bill. Can you explain a little bit more about what that is?
The Equality Act, the 2010 Equality Act, that essentially brought together all the pieces of equality legislation under one hat. So Disability Discrimination Act came into it, all of the employment regulations came under it, all the protection of goods and services came into it. But essentially it means that it's illegal to discriminate against people who have protected characteristics, and that was what it brought together. So it means that you can't discriminate against gay people or disabled people because they are gay or because they're disabled. It protects people for goods and services, employment, a whole range of different things, but it essentially pulled all the legislation that's been worked on in the past sort of 15, 20 years into one place. Then,
so essentially it protects gay people in the workplace and
yeah,
out and about.
and goods and services, but it doesn't just apply to gay people. It's so if you fall into one of the protected characteristic groups, you're now covered by that one particular piece of legislation, whereas before it was sort of 15, 20 pieces of legislation that differed slightly, and now they've all been brought into the one piece of legislation, and it's the same measures that are applied across.
And what about gay marriage?
Okay, so the same-sex marriage bill became law earlier this year.
Okay.
That's now been signed by the Queen. We're now in a process where civil servants are looking to see if there's any kind of secondary legislation that just needs to be addressed, and the practical considerations. So they'll be looking at how registrars incorporate it into the work that they do. They will be looking at making certain that all the town halls have got the appropriate paperwork. It's the sort of fiddlier side of things now, the more kind of logistical stuff that's being worked on, with a longer view to the first same-sex marriages happening at some point between the beginning of next year and next summer.
Where can these marriages take place?
The plan is that they can take place in any civil venue. Mm-hmm. So in much the same way that you could get married in a registry office if you're a heterosexual couple, or you could go to a licensed venue, it's going to be exactly the same for same-sex couples.
What about religious venues?
That's not yet fully decided. The Church of England has made it very clear that they don't want to carry out those ceremonies, and that's absolutely fine, they don't have to. There's no legal compulsion on any faith that doesn't want to celebrate same-sex unions on them to do so. Mm-hmm. But by the same token, if a faith wants to, then it can opt into and allow same-sex unions.
And what about Sikh gurdwaras? Do you know anything much about that?
I'm not familiar with what their stance on it is.
Okay, all right. And so, in your own point of view, what kind of life can a gay, lesbian, bisexual person lead in today's world in the UK? Because you're saying that, you know, there are difficulties, there's mental issues, they have to come out to their parents, it might be good, it might be bad, there is prospects of marriage, and there is legislation to keep them safe in the workplace. But what kind of life can a gay man or a lesbian woman or a bisexual individual have in today's society?
Realistically, they could have as happy a life as anyone else.
Okay.
What we are lucky to see in my lifetime is pretty much now near legal equality, and until you got legal equality, it made getting social equality that much more difficult, because you couldn't stop hate crime, you couldn't stop people from being sacked, you couldn't stop people from being turned away from hotels. That is now all fixed. We've now got that legislation through. What's interesting is when you look at public opinion, that has shifted remarkably over the past 10 years.
Okay.
So in terms of things like the introduction of same-sex marriage, we know that it was 7 in 10 people in Britain, and this wasn't lesbian, gay, bisexual people, but 7 in 10 people generally supported equal marriage. We know that amongst people of faith, that was 3 in 5 people of faith support equal marriage and allowing same-sex couples to be married. And that's a huge change on what it would have looked like sort of 15 years ago. So slowly the needle is shifting on social attitudes, and we are getting there. And there's never been a better time now to be lesbian, gay, bisexual in Britain. It's not perfect. There is still hate crime that occurs. There is still bullying that occurs in school, and that needs to be tackled.
What would you have to say about people who don't know much about lesbian and gay, bisexual people, who claim that, you know, it's a mental illness, or it's a choice or a problem, or, you know, that they can't live a proper life because it's a disability? What are your views on that?
Well, being lesbian, gay, or bisexual isn't a disability. Probably the easiest way of approaching it is that everyone benefits, and every individual benefits if they look at the diversity of modern 21st century Britain. Go out, take the time to meet people who are different from you, spend a bit of time with them. If you're near a gay pride event, just go along, have a look at the march, see how people are interacting, see the level of love and support and the different kind of families that are there, because it is a family event. So you'll see same-sex couples with children, you'll see parents there with a lesbian, gay, bisexual child. It's more about just finding out a little bit more about the world around you, and that ultimately, in a lot of cases, changes people's opinions.
And what about people who say it's a mental problem or issue that they have to solve or fix or, make their child straight? What do you have to say about that?
Sexual orientation isn't a mental illness, and there's no evidence to support that you can change someone's sexual orientation through either drugs or counselling. In fact, every time people have looked into it with any degree of scientific research, it's pointed in the exact opposite direction. What's more important is to work with and appreciate people who are lesbian, gay and bisexual, and encourage them to feel confident and comfortable around you, because that way you'll get more out of both of you, rather than if you just keep hitting the same button of it's a disability, it's a mental illness, because that's just going to make people not want to be open around you and not contribute as much as they're able to.
So you're saying people can open their mind by hanging out or surrounding themselves with people who are lesbian and gay. How do you know if someone is lesbian or gay? What do they look different? Do they act different? Do they behave different? How would I be able to know if someone was gay or lesbian or bisexual?
If they told you, there isn't a. It's hard to tell just by looking at someone if they're lesbian, gay or bisexual. You can't always tell from knowing someone for a couple of years what their sexual orientation is if they choose not to talk to you about it. What's interesting is when people say to me, "Oh, I don't know anyone who's gay," and I almost immediately say, "You probably do, but they probably don't feel comfortable talking to you about it."
Okay.
And that really is what it boils down to. If people know that you are comfortable with the whole gay thing, then they're more likely to be able to be honest and open and talk openly about their lives in front of you. If you work in a large organisation and you can confidently say, "I don't know anyone gay," it's quite possible that you have at some point said something to indicate to them that you're not going to be particularly friendly. You may well have hostile attitudes, and that deters them from talking to you about it.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, summing up about your life and your experiences and how that can teach our viewers a lesson at home?
I'm not certain anything that I've ever done in my life could teach anyone anything. I've been very lucky. I grew up in a very loving family. I came out when I was 21, and I've never really looked back.
And your parents accepted it and treated you the same and loved you? And
oh yes, my parents were absolutely they were more supportive than I could have hoped for.
Okay, and have you had any difficulties in your life, any trouble, any problems?
Not really around my sexual orientation, no. It's been relatively smooth. Once I was out of school, absolutely everything was fine.
Okay, so do you have any forwarding comments for people out there who are going through this? Any positive messages, information about how they can tell their parents or the parents can accept them? Any final comments? Or
probably the key thing to remember is whether you are a young person who's lesbian, gay or bisexual, or whether you are coming out later in life, or if you've got children or family members who you think you might be gay, the key thing to remember is you're not alone. You are not the only person who's gone through this. There are other people out there who can support you. There are helplines you can phone. You can visit. There are websites with practical written information that you can turn to. The absolute worst thing you can do is to feel that there's nothing out there and you are the only person who's felt it. There is support for you. You can access it. Some of it is online. Some of it's over the phone. But it can and will get better.
okay.
You just have to look for the support that's there and not accept that if you're unhappy, that is going to be a permanent state.
Thank you very much, James Lawrence from Stonewall, for speaking to us today. So we've heard from James that there are a lot of gay and lesbian individuals out there in our community, and we need to be aware of it. The statistics, we're still unsure about how they worked out, but there could be more, and there is a need to be open and loving and question your children and listen to them in order to know that this happens in our community, in the Sikh community. My name is Manjinder Singh. Thank you very much.